doing?
Doing fantastic. Okay. Well, the obvious question to lead you off here, Philip, is why are you running for president of the United States?
Well, that's a loaded question. So I had a career as an independent contractor for the federal government. I worked under two administrations, the Obama administration and the Trump administration. I worked anti-corruption, mostly political corruption, and anti-child sex trafficking. The corruption is so overwhelming. Someone who is not, quote-unquote, a politician, does not step in and make some changes, we are doomed. And it doesn't matter if it's Republican, Democrat, or any of the other parties. The corruption is equally as bad in all. They all work together. They're constantly misleading the people with false information about politics, so on and so forth, which causes a division in our nation like never before. And I just decided that somebody's got to do something about it, and I didn't want to be one of the people that just sat around and complained. I wanted to be one of the people that stood up and took action.
Well, Philip, this is where roads collide. We sit around and complain for a living, and you're the guy that's getting out there and doing something about it, and that's certainly to put your name on a ballot. And then when you think about this toxic train wreck of an environment we live in today, and the party you're seeking the nomination, the other guy seeking the nomination already has the job, that's some intestinal fortitude. Are you saying that from your vantage point, which you had a very good vantage point that's unique, and you did what with the Trump and the Obama administration? What did you do?
An independent contractor is the term that we use for a spy.
Yeah, okay.
I was a spy.
Give me an example of some of the things that you guys spy on American citizens, spying on Russians, or what? Give me an example.
Okay. So an independent contractor will be handled by one of the three-letter agencies. In my case, it was the OIG, the Office of Inspector General. The Office of Inspector General, one of their jobs is to make sure that the other three-letter agencies are doing their job. So I had that job, but I would also be contracted out to the other three-letter agencies to infiltrate different corrupt organizations, whether it was cartel, whether it was political. There's a lot of different examples. And yes, American citizens as well.
Phillip Drake is joining us in the program. Philip is seeking the nomination of the Democratic Party for president of the United States. Philip, I wanted, from your vantage point and your unique view of how things work on the inside, first let me tell you about an interview, I'll put it in a nutshell, that I did a few years ago with a guy that was, I think it was ATF, he may have worked one of the three-letter agencies. His job was to identify and then accumulate evidence and then bust international bankers that launder drug money. And evidently, according to this gentleman, the Miami, Florida is the world capital for international banking and laundering drug money. And he said that he quit his job to write a book about it. He said that every time that he'd have them busted dead to rights, have the banker busted, and just before the court date, he'd get a phone call saying, we've reached an agreement, and no need to show up in court. Everything's settled, and the banker would get, a few $1 million fine, essentially a slap on the wrist, and they would continue on as they were. And I asked him why he thought it was working out that way, and he said, Dan, the best thing to tell you is we have people very high up in the government on the payroll for Mexican and other drug cartels. That was stunning to hear. And, 10, 15 years ago when I did that interview, I was like, I just can't see our government doing that. Today, it doesn't even register with me. I'm numb to it all. Does that surprise you to hear those type of allegations made that we have officials high up the food chain in our governments on the payroll for the Mexican drug cartel?
No, and I have for the last 11 years, I have the list of the names of all of them.
So
also
you're not surprised
to back every bit of it up.
Folks, I got to tell you.
No, I mean, this.
Well, Phil, let me
This
say
was my
this.
career.
Phil,
This is what I did.
Let me say this, Philip. Philip and I didn't talk about this, or you and I didn't talk about this to set this question up for
No.
Philip. So, Philip, I think we ought to say that. Now, you go right ahead with your response to what I told you.
Okay, so yeah, no, it's 100% accurate. You know, that was my job was to gather this information. What I didn't know whenever I first started my career, whenever I was told that I was to observe, report, and execute, that I did a lot of observing and reporting, gathering intel, gathering information, just so our officials could use it to blackmail other officials for financial gain. And ultimately, that's what I was doing. You know, I was just becoming an extension of the arm that was already a problem, and that's why I resigned. And that's why I decided to get into politics and do what I'm doing now.
Phillip Drake is a candidate for the Democratic nomination. He wants to be president of the United States. He wants the big guy's job. I'm not talking about God. I'm talking about Joe Biden. But Unit, you have a question for Philip?
Absolutely. Philip, thanks so much for joining us on the program. My character's name is G Unit. However, in real life, and I'm here to basically act like Beavis and Butthead on a morning show. But in real life, I'm a former bond trader, and I left the stock market 41 days before the first investment bank collapsed in 2008. So I have a particular interest in the economy. As part of your platform, you advocate for tax reform for economic empowerment, and that includes lower rates for businesses and individuals, which will spur investment. Tell us what your vision for tax reform would look like if you're elected president.
Well, it's for a lower rate for businesses, but businesses that gross under a certain amount of money. It has nothing to do with a large corporation. The only way that the economy can be fixed is we have to become what we are told we are, which is free market capitalism, right? Capitalism. We are not that right now. Right now we're elitist capitalism. We have to change that. We have to strip the power away from the 1%, as they like to say, and give it back to the 99%. There is absolutely nothing that we can do until we do that, period, because we're being controlled. The minority is controlling the majority. Until we realize that, and until we stand up to these large corporations, these entities, we strip the rights from these large entities. They have no right to our rights, okay? None whatsoever. They are not a human being. They are an entity. So until we strip those rights from those large corporations and give them back to the people to have free market capitalism, we are doomed. And if you go on my website, you can read the policy, the one that you're talking about.
Yeah, Philip, what is your website where people can go read that policy and read more about you?
It's Drake, the number 4, US.com.
Phillip Drake, a candidate pursuing the Democratic Party nomination for the 2024 presidential election. Philip, I agree with you, what you're saying. And now there are people that are listening that are onto this. They figured it out. But there are a lot of people and I think the status quo depends on most people, this is way too much. We don't want to believe our country is capable of the things that you're pointing out. And they depend on us to feel that way, to not want to stop and reflect on everything we've been told and to verify it. We just want to go on with our lives, and we just want to bring in enough more money than's going out. And I understand it. I love history. I never could understand, Philip, how the German people, and at the time that Hitler rose to power, maybe in the most educated country on planet Earth, how they bought into the propaganda, the Nazi propaganda. I couldn't understand it. I do today, Philip, because I've seen it play out here and how that it works. We were warned by John F. Kennedy, the speech that killed Kennedy, where he talked about a shadow war going on for control of the country. And he said if they win, then the national media outlets will be condensed down into the hands of just a few people. Well, that's come to fruition. And he warned that if that happens, they will use it as propaganda. It's government for the corporations, of the corporations, by the corporations, is what John F. Kennedy was explaining. Well, they blew his head off while he was sitting next to his wife in a public street just a few days later. That's why'd they do it that way? Well, I think they sent a clear signal. You may not want to come up against us, folks. Or how do you see that? Was that possibly a coup to take over the government back 11/22/63?
Well, the government was taken over a long time ago. The government was taken over in 1791. It was stripped from the people. You said that you were a history buff, so let's go back a little bit further, and let's remember George Washington's farewell address, okay? He urged Americans to avoid all political parties and foreign alliances.
He did.
He emphasized the importance of unity within our country. That was his warning, and we did not listen. The political parties, which was the Democratic Republican Party at the time, won, which they're still won now, for the ones of you that haven't already figured that out. But in 1791, the Democratic Republican Party is what he was speaking of. And they have been in charge since 1791. And they have got us to where we are now. Now, if you look at my website, it'll say that I'm not your typical Democrat. Because I'm not. Because I don't like either party. Both of them are crap. Both of them. I've been listening to you guys interview some of the other candidates. By the way, wonderful job. But it is something that the people need to know. We have to become politically savvy, here in the United States. We're not, because we listen to our guy or our particular party, whoever it is that we feel that we should follow, our idea of the lesser of two evils. But, look, here's the truth. There's 168 million registered voters in the United States, right? Out of 168 registered voters, 25% are Republican, 26% are Democrat. 77% are independent. Out of the 25% of Republicans, 52% are what you would call far right, which is around 21 million people. Out of the 26% of Democrats, 31% are what you would call far left, which is around 13 million people. So you've got an extension of the far right, which is around 21 million people, an extension of the far left, which is somewhere around 13 million people. Now, this right here is what we have to understand. That 21 million and that 31 million are the ones that are getting all the attention and making the decisions for our two choices, okay? That is not a democracy.
No.
That is not a republic. That is none of that. That is puppets, loyalists. This is what George Washington warned us of, okay? That is loyalists. That is two minorities on each end of the spectrum making decisions for us, picking two candidates for us, and then the masses of us, the overwhelming majority of us, have to sit down and we have to say, okay, which is the lesser of two evils? Well, I got news for you guys. Evil is evil, period. There is no lesser of.
That's well said, Philip. Can you hold on for just a minute while we get a hard break here?
Sure.
And Philip, it's a pleasure to have you on the program. Thank you for that compliment, too, that you mentioned in having these presidential candidates on, including yourself. It's a lot to digest, folks. I know it is, while you're trying to enjoy scrambled eggs and bacon. By the way, Philip, do you agree or disagree with the statement that I'm about to make? You either like bacon or you're wrong.
Yeah, I agree.
You got my vote. Philip, thank you.
I agree.
I got a feeling that, did you hear us about the story that our own Brandon Shields broke yesterday on Nashville, Tennessee, telling Jackson, Tennessee, no, we campaigned, we promised conservative government, but we're going to make the decisions for you against everything that we promised you. We're going to shoehorn in Ace Charter School in Jackson, Madison County. I want you, are you familiar with what's going on with Ace Charter Schools and others?
I'm familiar with some of the others. I'm not necessarily familiar with what you're talking about.
Okay,
but
I want you to hold this for just a minute. I want you to address it when we come back and see what you think's really going on out there, because some people say this is them, the ruling class, coming for the biggest pot of gold there is. That's the taxpayer-funded public schools. That's some big money. That's the biggest pot of gold there is. And I want to see what you think about that when we return here and what to do with the public education system in America today. Phillip Drake is on the line with us. Phillip is running for president of the United States. He's seeking the Democratic Party nomination in the 2024 presidential election. It is 7:33. It is 64 degrees in Midtown J-Town. Dan Reaves and the G Unit. Unit, good morning, sir. Boogie check, Unit.
Where is Dick Butkus when we need him, Dan?
He's in a pine box, I hate to say. But, I need to see a body. That's Dick Butkus we're talking about.
We need more
That's Dick
men.
Butkus.
Like
That's Dick Butkus. That's Dick Butkus we're talking about.
Do you think Dick Butkus ever had a man bun?
Is that a real question?
Yes.
Men, they wear ponytails, especially men that suffer from male pattern baldness, that say, they look in the mirror and say, you know what, this ponytail looks fantastic on me. Maybe they won't notice. We'll be right back, folks. From the Gene Langley Ford Studio in Jackson, Tennessee. Oh, mix in some Crocs and you really got it going on. What are flip-flops just too dressy? They're cowboy boot flip Crocs now. Holy moly. What's the world coming to? That's the final straw for me. Forget about the never-ending wars, the never-ending election cycles. If you want a clear sign that the rapture's about to take place, cowboy boot Crocs are here. Hey, England,
Crazy.
Is it too late? Will you take us back, please?
Plays here. News Talk 96.5 FM and newstalk965.com.
We got the cars, they're coming in every day, so you can buy and drive away. Everything that you...
The place where West Tennesseans come for their dress clothes needs. We are so thankful for the many customers who have stood by us through the years and allowed us to play such a special role in the biggest moments of their lives. Our customer service is unparalleled, and our tailors work around the clock to ensure that your clothes are custom fit to you. With no suit in the store more than $259, there is something for everybody here at Cambridge. Come and see what we are all about, or give us a call to book your own wedding appointment today at Cambridge.
If you're in business, you know just how important each call is. You don't have time for phone or internet downtime. Your business needs a reliable communications partner 24/7. You need Lifeline Voice and Data. Lifeline Voice and Data provides telephone service to emergency service facilities all over West Tennessee and beyond. For your business, we don't just provide a phone line. We provide a lifeline. Lifeline Voice and Data.
Hi, everybody. Boomer Esiason here. Join us at Freed Hartman's 59th benefit dinner for deserving students. It's going to be a great evening.
Get ready for an unforgettable evening with two football legends, Boomer Esiason and Phil Simms.
Boomer and I know the value of hard work and dedication, and we're proud to support a cause that helps students achieve their dreams.
Join us Friday, December 1st for an evening of great food, entertainment, and Phil and Boomer. Reserve your tickets today at fhu.edu.
Welcome to the new home of Lewis Motors on North Highland. Lewis Motors has new inventory every week, so there's always a chance that your perfect pre-owned car is sitting right on our lot. Every vehicle must pass a rigorous 167-point inspection, not to mention low overhead and no dock fee. Come check out Lewis Motors to experience big savings, fast buying process, and guaranteed credit approval.
Lewis Motors, home of the no dock fee.
They've been in business here for 27 years, family business. We've had some need for body work, and I guess the biggest one was I had a deer back in 2019, which we all know that does to trucks, and they fixed it wonderfully, and they did a real good job with it. In fact, we bring all our work here, and I think they just recently won Best of the Best for 2022. So they're good people, good family people. They'll work with you any way they can, and I've never had a problem with them.
I'm Joy Weathersby, pastor of Paris First United Methodist Church. The purpose of our church is to love and serve God and our neighbor with all our hearts, minds, souls, and strengths. We believe that an impactful way to show God's love and to care for our community is by donating blood, and we do that through Lifeline Blood Services. Won't you help us in this effort of giving the gift of life by donating blood?
It's Ford ball time in Tennessee with unbeatable deals at Gene Langley Ford. Rebates up to $5,000, 0% financing, and up to $6,000 over book value on your trade-in. Score a touchdown today at Gene Langley Ford.
My name's Tommy Bland, and I just received the BioT hormone replacement therapy. For BioT, I was just not hitting on all cylinders. I didn't feel like myself. I was constantly fatigued, brain fog, lack of energy, searching for something natural, something that I could use to help benefit my body and help maybe take me back to where I once was. And while I was waiting in the waiting room, I saw a pop-up advertisement there, and I started reading over all the symptoms. And I went down the list. They all pertain to me. My experience with Miss Kim Nichols, my case manager for BioT, was great. She was very informative, put me at ease, went through everything step by step, knew exactly what to expect and what the outcome was going to be in the end. After BioT, I feel like I'm in my 20s again. I can get off work, go home, catch my second wind, and I'm off to the races again. It doesn't matter if I'm working, selling cars, or if I'm on the boat fishing a tournament, I'm back to my old self again.
Every pest control company has access to the same products. The southeastern difference is the way we go to market. We don't believe that you should have to take out a bank loan to protect your home. You have more value to us as a lifelong customer, not as a one-and-done sale from a slick salesman. We can still be reached 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Termite and pest control, fungus and moisture barriers, attic installation, or just about anything else. Our services are guaranteed. 731-660-1052.
The sweet sound of Mulligan's of Jackson, serving fantastic Irish flavors for over 2 decades. We take locally owned and family operated seriously. Our friends and customers are
Play Store or by visiting newstalk965.com.
Good Friday morning. It's 7:40 Central Daylight Time. It's 64 degrees in Midtown and J-Town. 78 the forecast time for this afternoon. 39. The forecast low tonight. We got a front pushing through here, and the bottom's going to fall out temperature-wise.
Mike was hot.
It's here we go. It's going to feel like we've been asking for it. It's going to feel like fall this evening, and then later on it feel like winter.
Listen,
tonight.
if you're headed out to the Uncivil War tonight, the North Side and South Side football game, be sure to bring a jacket with you because you may need it, because the temperatures by the time the game is over with are going to be a little bit cool out there. So, yeah, be sure to bring a jacket with you to the game.
That's right. My name is Dan Reaves. I can tell you that because I am cognitively there. Maybe not
I
here.
have like a good memory because I'm cognitively there.
Yes. And it's great to be with you this morning. The G Unit. Hi, Unit. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, my friend. Listen, I'm
Good
looking
morning.
forward to
Good
tonight.
morning, sweetheart.
Don't forget, the kickoff call-in show starts at 6 o'clock. We want to hear what game you're at and what the atmosphere is like where you are. A bunch of big games going on in the area. We will be, again, at Southside for the invading Northside Indians. So don't forget to call in tonight beginning at 6 o'clock, the kickoff call-in show right here on News Talk 96.5.
Yeah, me and the Unit, play-by-play color commentator, the G Unit. Coach T. Stratton on the sideline. Mecca Jarman, Dustin King, Chesley King, Michael Isaacson is on vacation. That's the crew working tonight. Larry Newman. Hello, Newman. Will be producing and directing here at News Talk World Headquarters. Just as he did yesterday from Bourbon and Barley's when we were live at Bourbon and Barley's yesterday. That's your home for every single NFL game and great food and high-end bourbon. And Doc will back me up on this. That does not include Southern Comfort. Well, that's just really good.
They have a good selection of bourbon.
KC was there.
Yeah.
He's from Trenton. He said, I love this high-end bourbon. I'll take a, let me go upper end Southern Comfort, please. My man, I do love Southern Comfort.
I figured him for a Wild Turkey, man, or Kentucky Tavern or something.
Yeah. Wild Turkey. Dr. Mark Fowler is in the house. Hi, Doc.
Good morning, Dan. Good morning, G Unit. How are you?
Good morning, my friend.
Philip Drake's on the line with us. He's a candidate pursuing the Democratic Party nomination for the 2024 presidential election. And, Philip, again, thank you for being with us this morning and spending a good amount of time with us. The question I asked on the way to the break, and I wanted you to ponder it, Philip was a independent contractor for the federal government, and that offered him the ability to gain some insights that most of us never have the ability to have that point of view or that from that vantage point as Philip. And it sounds like Philip, it scared the snot out of him. Philip, the state of Tennessee, Governor Bill Lee, who I've supported, he's in his second term. He ran as a conservative, promised small government, and preached the point that politics is best left to the local level. He went totally against that, has a relationship with Ace Charter School. They shoehorned it in after the Jackson-Madison County School Board voted unanimously no when Ace Charter School, of all things, screwed up their application. It was like one of those Want to Get Away commercials where the band is on stage and they say they're here in Jackson, Tennessee, and the lead singer says, "It's great to be in Jacksonville," sort of a thing. Want to Get Away moment. That was the Ace Charter School application. What's going on with this, do you think? Because it's not just Ace, it's charter schools across America. They say, quote, unquote, classical education. And I'm going to tell you, it's not Mozart. What do you think's going on here?
Well, you know.
No, I'm sorry. This
Philip
Drake.
Excuse me.
We'll get you a take in a moment, Doc.
Excuse me.
Yeah. Philip, go right ahead, sir.
Well, I can tell you what's going on. I'm not going to tell you what I think. I'm going to tell you what is going on. Because I see stuff like this over and over and over, especially whenever I live in the state of Texas, which is one of the most corrupt states in the nation. What's happening is it's employee is now telling the employers what they're going to do. So our elected officials are we the people's employees. And for some reason, we have laid down and let them take over. Now, here's how that works. So if you've got a governor, whoever it may be, and the people say, well, we don't want this particular thing. And instance with the charter schools, right? Well, you've got to understand there's a lot of funding, both state and federal, that's going to go into those charter schools. Well, the property's going to have to be bought. There's going to be construction companies, so on and so forth, to build the schools and everything. And your governor's just getting a kickback off of it. Period. Got his hands in the cookie jar. That's simple.
Is that just the way? Is that a general statement about how it works? And if it works if it's working here the way that it generally works, that would be the case? Is that kind of what you're saying?
That's the case that I've seen in every instance that I've ever investigated anything like this. Not most of the time, every time.
Philip, it appears to me that when Citizens United was shoehorned in by the Supreme Court, who no longer even pretend to be upright citizens, much less Supreme Justices, they just do it right out in front in the open. That's, again, your neighboring state there, North Carolina, was a great example of how they took political corruption out of the dictionary. Do you know that story? I think it was the governor of North Carolina who was busted red-handed. May have been in prison or was on his way to prison. The Supreme Court said, no, yes, we see the evidence. Yes, the man's guilty, but if we put him in prison, it will have a detrimental effect to the citizens of the United States. They will lose confidence in our system. Are you familiar with that case?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. It's not that they're worried more about looking bad. Okay, it's all about the image. They don't care about us. They just this right here is party politics 101. It's just typical party politics. The parties, whether it's the RNC or the DNC, if someone that is elected that is involved with those parties, the party should do a cleanup because it reflects badly on the party. They don't care about the citizens. They don't care that the citizens will or will not lose faith. They know that the masses of us have already lost faith in the system. They know that. They're just playing party politics and they're cleaning stuff up for their constituents. That's it.
It seems to me this is the way democracies fall. If you look over the course of history, you create all this havoc, then a strong man appears, says, I'm the only one that can save you, and people start worshiping at the altar of that. And here we go. And you say both parties are corrupt. Both have been bought out by the corporations. Citizens United. How do you reel this in? Citizens United, that's false advertisement as well. Labeling is very important. It has nothing to do with the citizens, nor does it have anything to do with uniting us. It has to do with we just handed over our democracy, our representative republic, to the corporations. We have oligarchs here. You believe that?
Yes, 100%. If you go on my website, you'll see that I actually have written a policy for that and an executive order to eliminate Citizens United. It has to go, period. We have to take big money out of politics because we have to take our country back. What we have to do is we the people have to be strategic, and we have to have an understanding that it is the best way to handle this is to have a revolution, but do it without revolting. So we have to educate ourselves to the facts. We have to start seeing truths for what they really are, not what we want them to be, so we can protect the future for our children, our grandchildren, and so on and so forth. Because this nation, in the track that we're going now, this nation will not last much longer. It won't.
Yeah, when I have a conversation off the air with people that have served in Washington, D.C., or people that I really have earned my trust over the years, they've got that same message. And it's, there's one that comes to mind. I won't call his name. That I called. I wanted him to make me feel better about this, and he made me feel worse. So Danny Boy, never thought we'd have this conversation in my lifetime, much less yours. We'll continue on as a country, he said, but it won't be the country we grew up in, and it won't return in my lifetime and not yours. That was sobering for me. They depend on, again, the status quo, the people actually running the show. Most Americans don't believe it could happen to us. It's too much to put our arms around. It's just too much. It's too much. Phillip Drake is on the line with us, candidate pursuing the Democratic Party nomination for President of the United States.
Phillip, again, thank you so much for joining us. This is G-Unit, and I do have a particular interest in the economy and in finance. On your website, you pose some very specific steps toward a balanced budget You mentioned balancing the budget by identifying areas of unnecessary spending, eliminating wasteful practices, and implementing strategic cost-saving measures. With all due respect, sir, these sound like very conservative measures. And as a Democratic candidate, how do you square that with the far right, the far left branch of your party?
Whenever I give you the statistics earlier, the amount of far right versus far left, which is the minority, we're a democracy. I care more about the majority of the American people and what benefits the majority of those American people. I don't look at things as conservative, independent, or moderate. I look at things as what best suits our nation. I do not play party politics.
That sounds like a very common sense approach. And I absolutely agree with you that we do need to identify unnecessary spending, wasteful practices, and what have you. A good example of that was the bridge to nowhere. We built a bridge, and there was basically nothing on the other side of it. And I think that this was in Alaska at one point. But anyway.
It was, you could actually see Russia from here, but that bridge to nowhere.
Yes. It was real.
Phillip Drake is a candidate pursuing the Democratic Party nomination for the 2024 presidential election. Your website, Phillip, people can find out more about your platform, the things that are important to you, and more about you personally. And I like what I'm hearing from you. And like you said, we've had 3 of the 4 presidential candidates we've interviewed have been fantastic.
Yes.
Phillip, you sound young. How old are you?
I'm 40.
40? Oh, you're way too young to be president. You got to be minimum 75 years old if you don't get that memo. And,
well, listen, I'm glad you said that. I want to tell everybody something. I'm only 40, but we need some young blood that has common sense and some logical intelligence as a leader. We also need to think this way. We spoke before about my previous career, and I get asked a lot, why don't you start at a lower level and work your way up? And I'm going to tell you guys why. And this is one of the reasons why we have the problems that we have now. Let's say I go and I run for, I don't know, some state office, right?
Right.
20 years later, I'm in politics. I'm still in politics. I work my way up. I said, well, you know what? It's time for me to run for president of the United States because this is how it's done. I will guarantee you in that 20-year span, I will be corrupted. I will guarantee it. I'm human. I'm a human being. I will be corrupted because the only way that you can stay in politics that long is to corrupt yourself, period. Any career politician, whether you like them or not, they've had to do things that went against the American people and what could have benefited their community in order to get other things done, and that's just not right. So that's why I went from being an independent contractor to jumping to the top, because I know I can't be corrupted in 8 years.
Joining us on the phone, Phillip Drake. He's a candidate pursuing the Democratic Party nomination for the 2024 presidential election. Phillip, I got to tell you, in assessing this, I'd like to run kind of rapid fire here because you mentioned prison reform. We privatized our prison, the beacon of democracy, the shining city on the hill. We have more of our citizens locked up than any other country on planet Earth per capita. We privatized the prison systems. Who'd ever thought this would happen? Well, responsible gun ownership, you mentioned. It's the number one killer for kids, I think, K through 12 is guns. And the Second Amendment argument falls to pieces. I own guns. But I don't have an unhealthy love of them. Yes, sometimes I do spoon with my gun and watch TV with it, and I name them. And when it snows, I use my gun to clear the sidewalk.
You hear this, Doc?
I did. But he's off his medicines again this morning.
No, Doc, I'm on them. But I can't remember how many this morning. When we go to a break, could you mind taking my vitals, Dr. Mark Mellers? But to watch this play out, we were not like this 30 years ago.
Yeah.
I hate to say this, but when a mass shooting occurs, it doesn't even make my radar. It's just another Monday in our country, the United States of America. That's called becoming numb to it because it happens so often. And the argument of Second Amendment rights, God-given rights to carry guns, because, of course, that was at the top of God's playlist. I'm surprised he didn't put it in the Ten Commandments. That's one that slipped his mind. Also, owning other human beings also slipped his mind. But a well-regulated militia, I am not, and I readily admit that. And when there was a well-regulated militia, the government of the United States could show up at your house unannounced, knock on your door and say, hey, unit, let me see your gun for inspection, and it better be good to go. And they could take your guns to be used to fight off the British or whoever else, Indians, whatever. And they could say, hey, you can't finish dinner because we need you. You're going to war here. To me, the Second Amendment, and I only started thinking about this because it's been used so much. You can't take my guns. It's a God-given right. First of all, I would think any God-given right cannot be influenced, manipulated, or taken away by man. So we don't need other men to help God keep his God-given rights in place. It's just if you actually apply logic to this stuff, it breaks down, and then you realize this is propaganda, this is intentional, this is scaring the snot out of mostly white people, and to get them upset. What do you make of this? Does the Second Amendment hold water with? Because now in Tennessee, it's what they dropped the age to legally carry a gun to 18. And you do not have to have training. There is no more requirements to own a gun as far as training. And also, they say it's just too intrusive to do a mental health background check to try and avoid selling a gun legally to a lunatic. What do you make of all this?
Well, that revolves around money. It's just like everything else. You know, we have big pharma. We have the big four with meat production. We also have big arms, you know. So it's just big corporations pushing to make money. Now, the Constitution is the land of the law, and the Constitution is not to be violated. Okay. What that means is that the Second Amendment is there to stand, but it's also up for interpretation. Our society is sick, period. We have been made to be that way. Okay?
Mentally
we have mentally ill, yeah. We have to have an understanding that there are some people that are not mentally capable of carrying a gun. A sane person does not kill a person for no reason. Just because someone picked on them and whatever the nonsense excuse is. A mentally sound person does not go into a school and shoot up children, period. So there has to be steps taken to make sure that those individuals should not carry a firearm. And listen, a lot of the mentally unstable people, they can't get a driver's license. There's so many things that they can't do because it's not safe for society. Whenever it comes to firearms, we should think about it the same way. Just because we say that the guy down the road or the lady down the road, which suffers from some horrible mental problem, can't own a gun, is not saying that we're saying that the rest of the nation can't own a gun. If you're mentally sound, you can have a gun because you have no reason to go shoot people. None whatsoever. So we have to use common sense. We have to use common sense. And also, man, the Second Amendment, I'm going to be a little bit crude here for a little bit, but there's one extreme, and it's on the far right. And I'll be honest with you, whenever they start talking about the Constitution, they really don't count past two anyway. They know there's the First Amendment and the Second Amendment, and that's pretty well it. Freedom of speech and right to bear firearms. Anything past that, they have no idea about the Constitution. They just harp on those two because, once again, it's party politics. identity politics. It's the far left versus the far right. It causes a whole lot of problems. That's why society is mentally ill. We have these mass shootings. We have a two-party system. We have a party system.
Philip Drake, let me tie this off because we got to get to the top of the hour. But I think you and Doc may have a question for you. We'll go rapid fire here. But let me start this out with when you're saying mentally ill, I get it. You can't gaslight people for now 40 or 50 years and it not affect their mental health. And this is all intentional. It's all well thought out. It's well diagrammed. It's well delivered. But I do know enough about mental health that I think we're caught up in a trauma bond, a large percentage of Americans. That's also known as Stockholm Syndrome. You can't flip a switch. You have to work really hard once you recognize, okay, I'm suffering here with my mental health. It takes a lot of work. You're not going to be better the next day. And I'm afraid that, because I don't, it's rare that people identify as, I'm a Republican or I'm a Democrat. No one identifies anymore as I'm an American. I want to get into the mental health aspect of it when we have you back in, because we don't have time this morning. But I think there's a red flag there, that the allegiance seems to be to a group of people seeking power, and that power is money. Now, folks, that's the definition of a political party. What I see, in my opinion, is that now people follow politics like they used to follow football. They root for their favorite team just for bragging rights. They don't even know why they're rooting so hard for this group of people. Here's the difference with a sports fan and a political fan. I love the Pittsburgh Steelers. When they win a Super Bowl, I know I'm not going to get invited to the White House. I'm not going to get a Super Bowl ring. I'm not going to get to touch the Lombardi Trophy. I know I'm not actually a member of that team. But when it comes to political fans, they actually think they're on the team. Do you agree with that?
Yes. I couldn't have said it any better myself.
And when you get people whipped up into a frenzy like that, you got them. And
yeah, that's it.
And a group of people seeking power, and that power is money. That's the definition of a political party, folks. Unit?
Sure. Mr. Drake, again, thanks so much for joining us. Philip Drake is on the phone with us. His website is pdrake4us.com. Again, pdrake4us.com. And he is seeking the presidency of the United States. On your website, Mr. Drake, you mention as border security and sensible immigration policies as part of your platform. So if elected president, how would you secure our southern border, and what would a sensible immigration policy look like in your administration?
I'll give you the short version of it. So we have to immediately lock down the border. And I worked on the border. I lived on the border in Texas. So I know a great deal about what really goes on, not what they say on the news. So we do have to lock down the border. And we have to extradite the process for the immigrants that are coming across. I mean, it takes them 2 or 3 years just to get a response back if they're going to come across legally. We also, it's explains in my policy, it's called the Uniting Americas Act. We have to use our leverage to make these other governments, for example, Mexico, help us lock down that border. And the only leverage that we have with Mexico to completely lock that border down until we get things straightened out is through our trade. And if Mexico does not want to play ball, I will cut trade with Mexico, period, until they do. Because it is a problem. I see the border crisis a little different than most people because I worked it. I lived there. It really is a humanitarian crisis because we have people that are being molested. We have children that are being sold off as child sex slaves. We have people being murdered daily by the cartel and by U.S. officials. Not only is it our duty as Americans to protect our border, but it's also our duty as Americans to be humanitarian and to make sure that we put a stop to all this. And the only way to ultimately secure our border is to help our neighboring countries fix their problems. If we can help them fix their problems, then the people are not going to want to come pouring across the border. It's not simple, but the idea is simple, if that makes any sense to you guys.
Yes. Let me read you a couple of texts here on the advance rate of a medical text that have come in. This one reads, make no mistake, Dan, the term mass shooting has become a buzzword term being used by mainstream media to describe any instance a gun is fired more than once in the presence of more than 3 people. Now, and I'm sure that person who sent that text is probably a great person that loves this country. They're listening to this program because they want to be informed and entertained. So with all due respect, that's regurgitating a far-right talking point. That's now we go. All of a sudden, the discussion goes from all this gun violence to let's talk about the definition of mass shooting. And the person that sent that, I'm sure they are wonderful people. It's nothing personal that I'm describing. I think they're a victim of propaganda. No one is immune to propaganda. But that's why we can't get anything done. Because if this were, let's say, bombs in backpacks, the same amount of kids dying in school, we do something about it. We would not stand for it, up with which we would not put. Doc, because of time restraints, Dr. Mark Fowler is here. Doc, go for Phillip Drake. He's a candidate who's pursuing the Democratic Party nomination for the 2024 presidential election. Doc?
Good morning, Mr. Drake. This is Dr. Mark Fowler. Let me ask you one quick question and follow-up. You indicated that you would seek to elicit Mexico's assistance in holding the immigrants in the border, and if they did not cooperate, you would cut trade. Can you define what you mean by cut trade?
I mean cut trade, period.
I know, but what is the mechanism?
No. Well, okay. A lot of the trade that we have with Mexico is big auto, so on and so forth. See, they send a lot of our jobs to Mexico anyway, which I'm not very happy with.
Right.
I think our jobs should be our jobs, right? And that is because of large corporate interest and party politics. So if Mexico does not want to play ball, we cut trade. And what will happen is it will help secure our border, and those corporations will have no choice but to come back to the United States of America because nobody in the world makes money without the consumers.
I got that.
In the United States of America.
What is the mechanism? What, are you going to stand at the border, send troops to the border to turn back the trains with automobiles?
Well, you can't send troops to the border because it's on American soil, but you can send the National Guard, and you're going to have to hire more Border Patrol, and we're going to have a much better vetting process with Border Patrol because, in my experience working on the border, there's a lot of corrupt officials. So we're going to have to increase security, basically. A lot of people will talk about the wall. Are you going to finish building the wall? This is a sore subject for a lot of people, but I worked there for a long time. The wall does not work. The issue is the corrupt officials on the border. You can build the biggest, greatest wall that you want. They're still going to let the people in because they financially benefit off of it.
Joining us to the program, Phillip Drake is on the line with us here, and we've just got a couple of minutes with Phillip. Would you go to the extreme to stop illegal immigration by, say, putting up a billboard on the border that says, if you think it's bad in Mexico City, wait till you get to Cleveland? You think that would help? I say that, of course, tongue in cheek, but I think you lock up one CEO of a corporation that hires illegal immigrants. The next day, illegal immigration goes away. I think the truth is at least from what I've gathered, is the corporations, they don't want illegal immigration to go away. They enjoy that type of labor because slave labor is no longer legal. Am I wrong about that?
No, I mean you're absolutely right. Another thing too, on top of what you said, it's also for party politics. It's a great propaganda tool, the border. So they continue to use the border
keeps us
to divide
divided.
us.
Yeah, divide and conquer is a simple technique used from day one on planet Earth by the ruling class. Very simple, but it just happens to work. Divide and conquer. You want to take one call before we get out of here? Do you mind? With a caller, it's just I'll punch it up randomly.
Sure, that's fine.
Okay, all right. Well, this would be a direct question for our guest, Phillip Drake, who's a candidate pursuing the Democratic Party nomination for the 2024 presidential election. And you're live with Phillip Drake. Go right ahead.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's before I say that, walls evidently do work because Joe Biden just spent $500,000 to wrap one around his mansion. So they must work. But I was going to ask your guest there that's running for president of the Democrat Party for the Democrat nominee, two questions, and I'll get out of the way real quick.
Okay, Austin, by the way, Austin, before you go, I hope you have a great weekend. Good to hear from you again. Now you go right ahead for Phillip.
You do. You also, Dan, both all you guys have a great weekend, man. But it's real quickly, and I'll get out of the way because I know other folks are interested in calling in also, but will you label the drug cartel as a terrorist organization, a foreign terrorist organization, and will you label synthetic fentanyl, a weapon of mass destruction? Thank you, guys. You have a great weekend.
Austin, you do the same. I'm glad you brought that up for Phillip to address. Austin, I can't believe this was America and seeing these people drop dead from fentanyl. And I think there's so much more to this, the psychology of this, because there's still a stigma in America. Somebody who's a drug addict. So it's a drug addict. These people are, they're draining on society. But a lot of people that are drug addicts today had the way paved by senators, congressmen that were bought off by Big Pharma. That let Big Pharma write legislation to pave the way. When things got out of hand, it was like in the old days, the sheriff says, hey, look, you can sell this illegal alcohol, but about once every 3 months, I'm going to have to come by, and you have to spend, a month in jail. But we got to keep up appearances here. I think it's pretty much the same way here. They lock up a bunch of nurse practitioners because somebody had to pay a price, and it wasn't going to be the legislators. It was not going to be Big Pharma. It's going to be a small guy for appearances only. And speaking of mental health, we'll get into physical health later on as well. But what's your thoughts on why we can't stop in our own country where we spend, take our military, we're number one, then stack up the next 12 biggest militaries in the world, combine them, and it's smaller than ours. And most of those people are our allies. How paranoid do you have to be? What's really going on here? Why can't we stop fentanyl in innocent people? We all know what it was like to be young people, and it's amazing that any of us survive our teenagers in our early 20s. And these people, they're good people that are dying from fentanyl. Why can't we stop it?
Well, I would like to say, Austin, thank you for the question. I heard you ask the same question to a different presidential candidate. And kudos to you, my friend. You keep asking these questions, especially good questions like that. We have to understand what fentanyl is. Well, number one, fentanyl has been around for a long time. It's not anything new. It's just something that they've just started talking about, more political party propaganda. Fentanyl has been around for 25, 30 years. You guys being in the Appalachian Mountains and me being from the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, we all remember the pain pill epidemic, Lortabs, oxycodone, so on and so forth. What a lot of people don't know is that is also a form of fentanyl. Okay? So it's been around for a very long time. The question that you should be asking your elected officials are, why are we just now talking about fentanyl deaths? Because it's been happening for a very long time. Now, as far as naming fentanyl, a weapon of mass destruction. By definition, okay, you can't, just because by definition. Fentanyl is owned by Big Pharmaceutical. Okay, Big Pharmaceutical controls our politicians. So what we have to do is we have to go after big pharmaceutical companies, the big pharma. That is the head of the snake. You kill a snake by cutting its head off, and that's where it's at. Now, as far as the Mexican cartels, and I'm not like pointing you out, but I heard the other day whenever you asked somebody, you were talking about MS-13. We also have to come up with an understanding of what are the Mexican cartels. So we have the Golfo cartel and we have the Sinaloan cartel. MS-13 is just a prison gang. That's it. I know Trump likes to get on TV and say MS-13, but he likes to say a lot of stuff that he doesn't know really about. It's just trigger things to trigger his base. So we have to have a great understanding of those things to come up with the solutions. Fentanyl, in my administration, who gets caught carrying fentanyl across the border or distributing fentanyl will spend the majority of their life in prison, period. And we will go after the big pharmaceutical companies, and we will get it off the streets, and we will track it to any country that it is coming from, and we will deal with that accordingly.
Phillip Drake is he's seeking the nomination for the Democratic Party in the bid to become the President of the United States. Phillip, sound like you've been listening to the show because you wanted to understand who you were going to be talking with. Are you surprised to hear a talk show? By the way, just I know that you can't know the lay of the land, and East Tennessee does have all those beautiful mountains. We're in West Tennessee, the flatland. I had to go over this with Nancy Drake one time on national TV.
I hear you, Dan Reaves.
She was Pinson Mounds, not Pinson Mountains. But we're located about halfway between Memphis and Nashville. Home of Carl Perkins. We're on I-40, so you could just jump on I-40 and drive over and see us. Straight shot. Be careful going through Chapel Hill and that part of North Carolina. Jeez, you're talking about a population boom right there. Anyway, I regress because, Doc, I think those meds did kick in. Just now. But Phillip, it's a pleasure to talk with you. Are you surprised to be able to share your thoughts and why you want to run for president on a radio talk show in the United States of America and not just be kicked in the ribs and made fun of by a far-right talk show host who is only spouting talking points handed to him from his corporate daddies, just to you know what I'm saying? Trying to get at you. Were you surprised?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen. Whenever we got the email from you guys, right?
Right.
My campaign manager forwarded me the email, and I looked, and I'm like, man, here we go again. Yeah. I'm not going to lie. So, but I was willing one way or the other. I mean, it's part of it. If I can't show the American people that I can handle being kicked in the ribs, still take it and look out for their best interest, then I have no business doing what I'm doing. Period. So I'm pretty well accustomed to it. But I will tell you this, I'm not saying this just because I'm on here with you. I have done a lot of interviews all over the United States. Thus far, you guys have been the fairest, period. You have been neutral. You ask the real questions. You guys should set a precedent to what mainstream media should be.
Well, thank you for saying that, Phillip. I think I speak for the unit and for Doc. We are becoming somewhat of a dinosaur in the industry, locally owned, that's focused on, and as easy as it would be to play the game and to intentionally mislead our friends and family that are listening and watching in exchange for money. I don't know. You're going to have to find people that are suffering from narcissistic personality disorder, because that's what the corporations want, and you can see it plain as day. We got to run, Philip, but I'd like to have you back in Unit 9, Wood and Doc, to continue the conversation. Yep. And it's a lot of intestinal fortitude. It seems to me, a 40-year-old man, it would have been, you had a good career going, and you were on easy streets. Been a lot easier. Just hang out 3 hours on the beach, drive over to the beach on the weekends, and live stress-free. Now you're in the spotlight, and good luck to you. That takes a lot of intestinal fortitude.
Well, I just want you guys to know that we got this. To be looking for me. I will be your next president of the United States.
Hear, hear, sir. And listen, if you are elected, if you can work daybreak into your acceptance speech, 6 to 10 a.m. Central Daylight Time with Dan Unit on News Talk 96.5 FM, if maybe if some of your campaign are jotting this down, man, we'd really appreciate it.
I'll have you guys standing right next to me. How about that?
Hey, there we go. Phillip Drake, a candidate he's pursuing the Democratic Party nomination for the 2024 presidential election. Well,